Imagine if your typical MMORPG was a first-person shooter, or a first-person magic shooter. You would probably think, that sounds pretty damn cool, and why has it not been done yet on a large scale? Well, that's the thing, it is being done by none other than EA, and the title of the game is called Immortals of Aveum. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Push to Talk, the series where I, Lewis, talk about particular topics in and around the gaming sphere to help keep you guys in the loop. Immortals of Aveum is the latest IP coming out of EA Originals, and was teased at last year's Summer Game Fest. From the creators of Dead Space and some of your favourite Call of Duties comes what EA describes as an original fantasy game engulfed in magic on the verge of oblivion. Okay, sweet, an FPS that doesn't really revolve around guns, but around magic. What's so special about it? Well, the difference is that Immortals of Aveum will solely focus on single player. This is quite a stray from your typical first-person shooters that we're used to, which kind of rely on multiplayer nowadays. But keep in mind, this isn't your typical first-person shooter. Usually you use guns. In Immortals of Aveum, you use magic. And, well, given EA's track record, the fact that the game doesn't rely on online services is probably a good thing. So, in this special episode of Push to Talk, Mr. Toffee and I are going to discuss some of the questions that you may have regarding the game. But before we get to the thick of it, I wanted to let you guys know that we at Kakuchopurei are actually collaborating with the apparel company Supreme to bring to you gamer profile t-shirts. These t-shirts are fully customizable as you can select 3 out of 24 different icons that best represent you as a gamer. So just head over to cheapreme.store/RUGame to select whichever icons you want on your shirt and show off that you are indeed a gamer. Because it's 2023 and it's cool to be a gamer now. And with that said, let's talk about Immortals of Aveum. Hi, I'm now joined by Mr. Toffee. How you doing?
Hey, doing great, doing great. So I remember the last time we did this was for EA's Wild Hearts, where I asked you a bunch of questions about that game. I feel that this is more like a reverse situation right now, don't you think?
Yeah, very much so. I think Wild Hearts was very much in my area of expertise, but now, although the game that we're going to be talking about is also an FPS shooter and is definitely like my kind of game. You were fortunate enough, to actually get a sneak peek before I did. So why don't you tell me about this brand new game coming out of EA Originals called Immortals of Aveum?
Yes, I will. And in fact, it might be yours and our good old co-founder Ken's cup of tea, because it's a first-person shooter. It's called Immortals of Aveum. And according to the producers and developers at Ascendant Studios, it is a magic shooter. It's their words, not mine.
Yeah.
And judging from all the gameplay I've seen so far, it is pretty much that. So imagine a Call of Duty game with slightly bigger levels and pathways that are like kind of Metroidvania, such actionish, where you can actually revisit these areas. Except magic and high-level fantasy. So you're in this world of Aveum, where you control this character named Jack. He's part of a battle mage group called the Immortals. That was actually a term for him. Let me look it up. I'm very sorry about this. There's so many terms the developers have thrown back and forth. Requires a bit of a glossary. I believe he is called a Magnus. Yes. So these Magnuses are battle mages in the world itself, where like the best characters. So Jack himself, he actually got his powers through trauma. He didn't get it when he was born. So he's a unique character. Like, we'll find out more about that in the game story. And I've been told that the single player campaign is 25 hours, which is, I mean, your Call of Duty is like what, 6 to 8 hours?
Yeah, roughly about that.
1, 2, 3, around there. So this game, because of the developer and studio's focus on single player, it's 25 hours with the whole like revisiting and the backtracking and whatnot counted in as well. But from the gameplay I've seen, you explore caves, dungeons, you take on strike missions like your Call of Duty militants and your enforcers, except with magic. And no, this isn't like the game, like any cover-based shooter where you hide behind cover and you throw spells behind a wall. Yeah. You are actually out in the open to shoot these guys down with red, blue, green magic. And of course, in the defensive form and all that, you have like all these other skills, like the blue shield you can pull out but it slows down your movement, but you can basically take damage without getting your health hurt. You got a shield up, and you can just fire spells at the same time. And also you got this whiplash, I believe. Oh, take out the lash. Blue power up, which lets you grapple onto any blue surface you see in the battlefield or in the dungeon where you gotta explore the areas, or you can pull switches, you can go to areas that are hard to reach. And you've also got the green power up, which I'm gonna look up for the name here. I believe it's called limpets. So these limpet power ups, these are these little green orbs you throw onto enemies or objects to slow them down. So this can either be used for practical puzzle purposes, like you've got like a door that opens and closes really fast. You just put limpets on it and you get to go through the pathway. Or you could just use it on bigger enemies to slow them down. I believe there was a fight with close range soldiers from the warring nation in the game itself, and also fighting a dragon. I believe you also threw a bunch of limpets to slow it down while using your red spells, which is basically the equivalent of a shotgun, and your blue spells, which is basically your sniper rifle and your long range kind of attacks, and also your green spells, which is like a cross between an auto rifle and AK-47 and homing shots from Panzer Dragoon. That's a bit of a deep cut there, lah.
Yeah.
So you got to basically switch back and forth, like green, blue, or red, to sort out the situation. So if you got enemies sniping at you from a distance, use your blue spells. And if you got like big enemies who actually come up with you with the giant hammers and the maces, you got to use your red spells and also your shield in case.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, that pretty much gets a lot of the basis of the mechanics out of the way. How would you describe the actual gameplay itself from at least what you saw? Because from what I saw, it is very much, Call of Duty. If it was, instead of guns, you were pretty much a mage that could shoot spells. And I think the developers' background in Call of Duty definitely, well, Call of Duty and Lord of the Rings probably does help contribute to the theme and the aesthetic of how the game plays and feels. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. So the CEO of Ascendant Studios is Brett Robbins. He has a lot of experience with Call of Duty. Not just that, I think he had his experience with Modern Warfare 3 and Advanced Warfare from a production and director standpoint, with the level design, the flow of the single player and the multiplayer, and so forth and so forth.
Yeah.
In fact, the idea of Immortals of Aveum actually stemmed from him reviewing a couple of levels for Call of Duty, where he basically said, what if I change the helicopter in this stage, in this battlefield, into a dragon?
Yeah.
And the mortars and the shells, the RPG shells, change it to fireballs that explode.
Yeah.
And the soldiers on the ground are battle mages. So he just worked that idea from there, and for the next 5 years from his life up till now, he's been creating this game. In fact, he even actually hired a lot of people from Telltale Games when they were about to shut down in, I believe, 2017-18, when they were about to shut down. He talked to folks like Dave Bogan, who was the senior art director at the time, to say, hey, do you want to do art for my game and more stuff? And I guess the hiring process was really, really quick. I mean, and he actually jumped into a job as soon as Telltale Games shut down. So it was like serendipity lah, basically.
Yeah.
And that small studio of Ascendant actually grew from, I believe, 50 to about 100 plus people.
Wow.
So it just grew, and then as you saw the gameplay, it's very colorful, very high level, super polished, everything. It's just, I believe the team actually spent more time from their experiences doing those games, even Dead Space 1. Brett Robinson actually had a hand in Dead Space 1. And also the EA Lord of the Rings games, the beat 'em up, and the 007 game. I believe it's From Russia with Love. A lot of people love that game. So all that experience in making polished EA games, actually, you could see it be carried forth here in Immortals of Aveum, with how the characters move, how the fighting is done, how every spell you fire doesn't feel very light. Like, it's like the anti-Harry Potter, I believe.
Yeah.
Where Harry Potter just feels very whimsical.
Yeah.
Immortals just feels a bit more rough, in a good way. Like, when it hits, when a shotgun spell lands, it really lands.
Yeah.
And when a blue spell lands really far away, I think you can hear the crackle and this pop and how everything feels. I think a lot of that time spent on Immortals is, you know, making sure that players feel a lot more badass. Like as a battle mage, like the emphasis here is battle, because you're in the thick of it. You're fighting giant dudes, giant monsters. You also saw that same gameplay trailer where you fought a dragon and you fought a golem, right?
Yeah.
And the golem, I mean, the golem fight was pretty cool because the golem kind of reminded me of something out of a Go Nagai anime.
Yeah.
But, you know, and also a Cylon, of all things.
Yeah.
Even when there was a bit of a Q&A thing going on, Dave Bogan did mention that apparently all my artwork for my influences from the West and the East kind of combine here. So
right.
you watch a lot of Battlestar Galactica, so that's why the golem look like a space golem, but not quite, you know? And why some of the fantasy tropes here feel like not that typical, like, you know, pointy hats and whatnot. They're trying to make Aveum feel very unique with the ley line concept of the world, with the battle mages being more like elite squads in an army, but shock troopers, but, you know, with magic. And even the item that Jack is carrying, the main character, is like a sigil. It looks like something funky out of like, I mean, what do you think? I mean, the sigil look really unique. Like, what came out in your mind when you saw that?
Yeah, you're talking about the communication device that he uses.
Not just a communication device, but also the weapon that he uses to control his magic.
Oh, that one, yeah. It looks like, the claw. Yeah, there's a claw that comes out of it, and it looks. I don't know. My first thought when I saw it, it looked like the blade from Assassin's Creed, like, because you know it's a very same concept where it's a blade that projects out of the hand. But yeah, I mean, the weapons themselves look phenomenal as well. There's obviously, you got the primary fires, and then there's the spells on top of that. But there's such a wide range of diversity, and I think the gameplay trailer alone does a really good job at showcasing the synergy between the different types of, like, for example, the spells. Obviously the red one is like the close range shotgun. You got the green one, which is the primary fire is homing, kind of like a needler from Halo. And then
needler, that's a good example.
And then you got the blue one, which is just your typical kind of assault rifle-esque kind of like weapon. So I think that the gameplay trailer alone does a really, really good job, at showing the synergy between the two, and then obviously incorporating the spells as well. So it doesn't, you know, when you think of magic, you're probably, right now you would probably think of something like Hogwarts Legacy, you know, Harry Potter, very much, you know, wizard and wands, but this really much like feels like almost as if I guess, something a game like Skyrim, like how magic in Skyrim should have been, you know? Because,
more badass, right?
Yeah, just more badass, and like it genuinely feels, I'll probably say this a lot, but it feels like if Call of Duty just had magic.
Yeah, it's a fair comparison, but I don't want it to say it that way. I don't want to actually, you know, like downplay the game's more structured thing and all that, because again, you're out in the open of the shield. You also got ultimates, you know, like they took the concept from different shooters from 2016 onward, where they're called Furies. You actually have like mana bars at the bottom, and you use it up by doing the special shockwave attack or an AoE attack. I'm guessing if you have the blue and the green style of magic, you'll probably be a bit more defensive, but so far we saw the more offensive version of it. And it won't be just dragons and golems you fight. You'll also fight other battle mages who can... We saw one epic fight where the guy this evil battle mage just summoned a bunch of clones basically to just attack you. And I believe your character can summon a clone as well in the later stages. I'm not sure how later is that, but we saw chapter 3 and then unknown chapters. So there's probably like a huge time skip or whatnot. Or, you know, they don't want to spoil the game, obviously. So give us a taste of what's going on. So I see a lot of really cool whiplash attacks. I see a lot of like shotguns and the shockwave I mentioned. There's a proper name for it. I just totally forgot because I get so excited talking about it. And also there's even puzzle elements as well, because you don't see that in Call of Duty. Like, this is the puzzle elements I feel is more like Borderlands with your BioShock combination of games. Where you go to a room, you figure out what to do with the magic that you have. And one example is you just gotta shoot green magic onto this mirrors so that you can actually activate the statues. And you got to activate it by standing at a particular spot. So there'll be a lot of I'm guessing there'll be a lot of like simple but not too complex but not too tough puzzles for you to solve.
Probably.
You just have to basically just pay attention and explore the environment. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like
very,
a good balance.
Yeah, very, very like RPG-esque when it comes to the puzzles and whatnot. But yeah, speaking of RPG and speaking of the characters in general, obviously you've got the main protagonist, Jack, who is a battle mage who kind of awoken his powers due to trauma. But what can we talk about at least from the trailers that we've seen, what other characters? I think there's one notable one that we probably want to bring up, which is the general.
Oh, yes, Kirkin, leader of the Immortals, General Kirkins. Played by Gina Torres of Firefly fame. I think she starred in a bunch of other films, but I remember her from Firefly. She plays like the no-nonsense general who took Jack under her wing.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got Devin, a green mage, healer, more of a wisecracking kind of guy. You've got Zendara, she's the tough woman, red battle mage. And of course, Jack. So you've got that motley crew of people you're going to be teaming up and fighting with. They're going to be AI companions. I don't know how far they're going to be in terms of like how they help you, but so far, I think it's mostly the missions we've seen is mostly just Jack by himself doing the work and whatnot for now. So I hope there's going to be like set pieces where all four of these characters come together to fight against the bigger evil. Like the enemies will be fight. I mean, the actual setting is set in this Ever War. It's a war that's just been going on for hundreds of thousands of years and not showing any signs of stopping. And you've got Sandrak Rashad, who is actually the leader of the Rashad group, who has like basically just got a lot of badass magic trying to, you know, conquer the world, like standard evil guy plot, which will be uncovered as the story goes on. And you've got this other badass Rashad enemy called the Hand. Like basically just like silent but fully armored, slender armored battle mage who just comes down and just wrecks your stuff. Like in the chapter that we saw, you basically got owned lah. Let's just say, put it mildly. Yes, I mean you dealt with the other enemies no problem, but just the Hand.
Yeah,
I'm guessing there's gonna be some build up and then some payoff at the end, which should happen lah. Like
Probably.
Think of your Makarov in Call of Duty 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
you know, like those sort of fights leading up to that. So yeah, I think the only thing I don't want to see in this kind of game, especially when it's 25 hours, is basically repeated cut and pasted fights. I don't want that. I really hope none of that happens. Like every fight with a golem and the dragon has to be unique. Like if you show the dragon and the golem, I want to see different fights. Or maybe if you fight the Hand, maybe in different circumstances, like maybe in a corridor fight, which is tougher. Or maybe in an open air battle fight where, yes, it's easy to target the Hand, but you've got to worry about the Hand's other armies coming in that he or she can summon at will.
Yeah.
Like, interesting set pieces because you got all these cool spells, and the last thing you want is to have an easy fight, right? You want a challenge.
Exactly.
So what do you think? I mean, is that something you want to see in Immortals of Aveum?
I think, obviously, you definitely want a challenge when it comes to FPS games, and maybe it could be my competitive nature as well. I do like a bit of a challenge, but there's also people who just want to play casually. You know, somebody who might be coming back from work and just wants to just play Immortals of Aveum just for, you know, just for a little bit of fun and just to relax and de-stress a little bit. And I think that from what we got to see, the gameplay mechanics alone, I feel, do a very good job at doing that. Very much. You know, yes, it can be challenging if you want it to be, but then you could also just not, you know, you could go a lot more easy and just mainly use your primary fights. You don't have to use your big spells as much and whatnot. Obviously, depending on the level, there could be different levels of difficulty depending on who you're fighting and whatnot. But yeah, no, I think probably my biggest concern would be yours too, which is the repetitiveness that could occur with a 25-hour long game, especially unless, you know, I feel like the only way that they can really counter that is if they really go, you know, balls to the wall with the story and actually go really in depth and really immerse the players into what is the story.
Well, all else fails, just put 2 dragons in the fight, see how that turns out.
Yeah.
I think we should also talk about the other elephant in the room, the multiplayer.
Yeah.
To the fact that there is none for Immortals of Aveum.
Yeah.
And they have a very good reason, because Ascendant just wants to focus on the single player campaign. That's why it's 25 hours. That's why you see all the flashy colors and the spells and how good they feel when you cast them, but at the same time, you do not want a half-ass multiplayer experience.
Oh yeah,
basically.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I've got a very, I mean, I would not be surprised though. Potentially in a couple of years, they could do pretty much what they did with Apex Legends, where Apex Legends originally comes from Titanfall, and obviously Titanfall was, although it did have a multiplayer, it was very single player focused. I think most people remember it fondly for its single player experience. So I think I would not be surprised if in a couple of years, if the franchise does well, they could be a multiplayer game. But yeah, I think that was there not being a multiplayer was probably my biggest letdown, obviously, because I saw how big, how impressive the gameplay looks, and imagine being able to, I mean, in theory, yeah, imagine you have a lash and you're like dragging opponents to yourself. If that was implemented into a multiplayer environment, then yeah, I can imagine it wouldn't be the best multiplayer experience, especially, given how that the gameplay is so catered to a single player kind of game.
Yeah, totally. But luckily, they also mentioned some cool things like no microtransactions. You can definitely play the game offline, and I guess you only got cosmetics when you pre-order the game. That's about it, but which is pretty standard for any AAA title. And the fact that they're really trying their best not to make this game like a standard fantasy kind of title also speaks volumes about how it looks, how colorful it gets, and how visceral. I really hate this word visceral, but it really is, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, really no other way to describe it, where it's just very impactful in terms of how you cast the spells, making everything pretty tied in terms of the action, like we mentioned. But at the same time, also another really good thing they brought up is they're gonna have in photo mode and a bunch of options. So if you did a really cool kill, you can just screen cap that moment.
Yeah.
Like same with War, same with this game as well. So because you saw all the pretty lights and all the action, so
yeah,
you must have a photo mode. Come on.
Yeah. Obviously, a question that a lot of people may have is, when exactly is the game coming out?
It is coming out on the 20th of July for PC, Xbox Series, and PlayStation 5. I believe it's going to cost about the same as a AAA title, 60 US or so onward. Really depends, but it's a AAA title under the EA Originals line. And judging from how it looks, and if, let's just say, the promise of a 25-hour campaign holds true, it could be worth the price.
Yeah.
I think the only issue is basically like how it really plays from the get-go and how the pacing will be. But I think that's more or less a question we ask when it's close to the release date and when it's close to review time and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of promise with Immortals of Aveum. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really a big Call of Duty guy, but only because there's more focus on multiplayer. I'm one of those odd people who like Modern Warfare 1, 2, and 3 because of the pacing of the 6-hour, 8-hour campaign. That's how nuts I am.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're in a world where a bunch of people who've worked on Call of Duty and a lot of other EA games are focused on doing a 25-hour single-player game with no multiplayer whatsoever. Maybe in the future, who knows, as DLC, we'll never know. There's a lot of assets, by the way, they can reuse. The fact that they're doing a 25-hour campaign, single-player focus, just speaks volumes that if this game actually does really well, we might see a new precedent that EA and other game studios might, maybe even Activision, if they already have like a backbone for multiplayer, that's already done with Warzone and whatnot. So if they want to charge money, they charge money for a single player campaign that's like 10 hours, 20 hours long with an open world kind of feeling and whatnot. That could be the model they can go to. And for multiplayer, they can just leave that alone, let everyone else play that as a free-to-play sort of ordeal thing.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that if this Immortals of Aveum does really well, we might have a new precedent line in terms of how first-person single-player games are, let alone a magic shooter of all things, which is something that's needed in this day and age.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I think that in this day and age, especially when it comes to FPS games, they definitely prioritize multiplayer a lot more than they used to. I mean, yeah, I have very, very fond memories. I played through the Modern Warfare 3 campaign countless times. That was mainly due to the fact that I didn't have internet at the time, so I could only really play it offline. But still, even though it was, Call of Duty campaigns have always been, short and whatnot, I still enjoyed it thoroughly. So given somebody else in that situation, and given the fact that, if you have the chance to play Immortals of Aveum, and it's got like a 25-hour long campaign, then I feel like the replayability aspect of it there's such potential for replayability in it.
Yeah, it is actually structured like a search action Metroidvania style game.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Alright, so that's it for the video preview of Immortals of Aveum. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope that answered most of the questions that you guys might have. Obviously, if you guys have any more, then comment section down below, that's what it's for. And then, yeah, thanks again, Mr. Toffee.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And that's it for this very special episode of Push to Talk. Are you guys and girls looking forward to Immortals of Aveum? Is there anything in particular that you guys are looking forward to, or that you might want to see from the game? Do let me know down in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, then be sure to like, subscribe if you want to see more content just like this, and obviously ding dong that notification bell to be notified when we upload next, because we upload videos every single week. Thank you all for watching. My name's been Lewis from Kakuchopurei, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Ciao for now.